When it happened, I was cornering my archenemy Theodore in an alley and giving him a good beating. Suddenly, I felt dizzy, everything went black before my eyes, and I was teleported to a strange room. My archenemy Theodore was also teleported here with me, and he ended up on top of me in a different position. Without caring where I was, I lifted my leg and gave him a ruthless kick in the waist. Theodore let out a muffled groan, caught off guard, and his eyes glared at me as if he wanted to gouge me out. Just as he was about to raise his hand to fight back, a voice suddenly came from above. Welcome to the room of you can't leave without having a child. Please maintain a harmonious relationship and work together. Dear players. What? Theodore and I looked at each other in dismay and stood there stunned. We suspected that we had fought so fiercely that our minds were muddled. Have a child? A harmonious relationship? Theodore and I gave him another flying kick and knocked him to the ground. Then I got up and took 3 steps back. Are you kidding me? Have a child with Theodore, let alone the fact that we are both alphas and physically unable to do so. Even if he became an ultimate omega, I would never lay a finger on him. Have a child? I'd rather beat him until he's infertile. Theodore was hit by my 2 ruthless kicks, and his face turned as black as charcoal. He covered his waist and got up angrily, glaring at me and gritting his teeth. Henry, what deep hatred do I have with you that you want to ruin my later life? There was still a bit of grievance mixed in his furious tone. He even acted wrong. I was so angry that I laughed. You snatched my wife. Do you think this doesn't count as deep hatred? I, Henry, an S-class alpha with top-notch looks and abilities, have been single for 20 years. It's all thanks to this guy in front of me who looks decent on the outside but is full of evil inside. From childhood to adulthood, whenever I took a fancy to an omega, Theodore would swoop in before the next day. Even a dog wouldn't believe he isn't targeting me. I've intimidated, threatened him and even dueled with him alone countless times. But he just won't stop. As an S-class alpha just like me, I can't do anything to him. Moreover, I don't know what spell he cast on those omegas. After getting together with him, they all avoided me like the plague. They even told the omegas around them not to get close to me. Per me in my prime, haven't even touched a pair of sweet and soft little hands. Let's just forget about these old things. But last month, my family finally arranged a marriage alliance for me. The other party was an omega as sweet and obedient as a marshmallow. As soon as she saw me, she would blush and smile shyly. She was quite satisfied with me. I thought that finally it was my turn to experience love after marriage and enjoy the sweet taste of love. But that scoundrel Theodore secretly told him something again. This well-behaved omega who never overstepped the mark actually broke the engagement and ran away the night before the engagement. My big-sized wife just disappeared like this. I haven't even held her hand. I'm so angry. So this is the reason why you suddenly blocked me in the alley and beat me up? Just for this? Theodore looked quite disdainful and a bit annoyed. Isn't it just an omega? You've only met her a few times. If she runs away, is it really that important to you? Listen to this. Is this something a human would say? I'm so angry that I could explode. I really don't have any feelings for this omega yet. Accepting the marriage alliance is just following the family's arrangement. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean I can accept that scoundrel Theodore ruining my good deeds again and again. I glared at him and raised my eyebrows, saying, fine, it can be unimportant. Just compensate me with a wife. I don't have a wife, but I do have a husband. Theodore slowly took off the coat that I had kicked dirty and rubbed his firm waist suggestively. The voice above timely spoke up. 1 wife and 1 husband. They just make a couple to have children. If you want to get out, start quickly. Only then did I realize who the husband Theodore was talking about. You scoundrel. You never repent and still take advantage of me. I can't bear it anymore. I kicked out another flying kick. Theodore dodged aside and grabbed my foot with one hand, taking advantage of his height advantage of being half a head taller than me. He pulled me into his arms and pinned me against the wall, covering his private parts with one hand. He gritted his teeth again and said, Henry, I'm saying it one more time. Don't kick down there all the time. I sneered and said, what else should I do if I don't kick it? It's useless anyway. Theodore squinted his eyes, and the hand holding my leg slid up ambiguously. Who says it's useless? Don't we need it now to make you have a baby? I can't compete with the scoundrel in being shameless. Moreover, I don't know if it's an illusion, but Theodore's physique and strength seemed to have secretly improved. I fought with great effort, but he was still at ease. It seemed as if he was just playing with me. I couldn't vent my anger. Instead, I got more and more frustrated as I fought. In the end, I was so tired that I collapsed on the ground and waved my hand at him. No more, no more. I can't do it anymore. Theodore also sat against the wall on one side, pulling open his collar to expose a large area of his strong chest and abdomen glistening with a thin layer of sweat. Gasping for breath, he replied, "Come on again, I'm still up for it." He even had the energy to tease me. I angrily pounded the ground. Wait until I get out to recuperate and then figure out a way to teach this bastard a good lesson. But I got up and turned the doorknob, only to find that it wouldn't open. Could it really be like what that annoying guy said? That I really have to have a child to get out? I finally realized the seriousness of the matter. This room is a completely enclosed space. Apart from that unopenable door, there isn't any window to get out at all. I checked every corner of the room relentlessly and found that apart from a bed, there were no other clues or props in the whole room. Where on earth have they brought me to? The more I thought about it, the weirder the matter seemed. Who is so bold as to kidnap two S-class alphas at the same time? And stage such a shameless prank? Aren't they afraid of being beaten by us? Or being jointly hunted down by the Su family and the Qing family? I turned my gaze to Theodore, who was motionless. Seeing that his expression remained calm and composed, he became even more suspicious. I asked him angrily, "What kind of tricks are you playing?" Theodore lazily looked up at me and spread his hands innocently. "It wasn't me." As he said that, he rubbed his waist again and said self-deprecatingly, "Am I crazy? Would I lock myself up with you and offer myself to you to beat up? Well, that's true." I dispelled my suspicion, but I was still very angry. "If it wasn't you, then with that nonchalant attitude of yours, can you get up and think of a way?" Theodore looked indifferent. "What way to think of? The way is right there." I rolled my eyes. "You really believe it? It's obviously a prank. Besides, even if it's true, we're both alphas. Can you give birth or can I?" Theodore's eyes seemed to brighten for a moment. "Actually," he murmured something in a low voice. I interrupted impatiently. "Stop talking nonsense about having a baby. Even if it were possible, I wouldn't touch you." Theodore immediately shut up and fell silent. His face instantly became extremely ugly. The air also became stagnant. I touched my nose and turned around, ignoring him. Theodore and I were sitting in the two farthest corners of the room respectively. We were silent facing each other. The atmosphere in the room was a bit inexplicably awkward and strange. I was so uncomfortable that I wanted to fight with him again. It's been a long time since we last spent such a long time alone together. It's been so long that I can't help but start to recall. Actually, Theodore and I weren't enemies at first. On the contrary, we had the closest relationship among our peers. We grew up in the same compound. We can be said to be childhood sweethearts. When we were kids, another Omega and I were always together. We held hands and went around catching fish and birds. We helped each other fight and took the blame. We were so close that we were like one person. But things gradually changed when we entered junior high school. Theodore started avoiding me for no reason. He didn't talk to me and wouldn't let me touch him. In the past, we were used to putting our arms around each other's shoulders and holding hands wherever we went. Now, even if I just touched the corner of his clothes, he would dodge with a strong reaction. Later, in a swimming class, I just gently touched his back, and he pushed me away forcefully. He also shouted at me to stay away from him. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I just felt extremely wronged. Until one day, I accidentally saw him pulling that Omega into a corner and telling him to stay away from me too. Only then did I realize that this guy had learned to value a girl over his friends. I was both angry and sad, so I rushed out and had a fight with him. After the fight, I made up my mind not to talk to him anymore. Fortunately, my Omega friend didn't listen to him. He chose to continue playing with me and directly distanced himself from Theodore. Theodore probably held a grudge against me ever since then. After breaking up with us, he has been causing trouble in front of the two of us. Later, the Omega went abroad. He was probably so sad that he couldn't move on. So over the years, he has snatched away all the Omegas around me one after another. All the commotion has led to the current situation where we are at odds with each other. Recalling those happy and innocent times in the past, I can't help but feel a bit melancholy. I silently let out a sigh. When I looked up, I directly met Theodore's eyes that were firmly fixed on me. That look was like that of a hawk, as if he was eyeing the prey that was about to be in his mouth. My heart skipped a beat instantly. Immediately, the alpha's stress response instinct was released. Perhaps it was because we had been locked up together for too long. The alpha's pheromones began to leak out uncontrollably, and there are two alphas in this room. Both of them are S-class. The pheromones of alphas and omegas will entangle and soothe each other, but the pheromones of two alphas will only repel and suppress each other. That feeling is even more uncomfortable than being directly pinned down and beaten violently. I don't want things to really get to that point, so I gritted my teeth and desperately tried to suppress it. but I don't know what the problem is. I feel that the hormones in my body are gradually getting disordered. It's like the prelude to the approaching of the susceptible period. It's likely that Theodore is having the same situation too. I saw from afar that his eyes were a bit red, and he was staring fixedly at me. All the muscles in his body were tensed up. It won't do if this goes on. If the susceptible period suddenly comes, the two alphas will kill each other. I got up again and ran to the door, trying to break it open. Regardless of the pain in my body, I smashed it hard several times. The door remained motionless. I don't know when Theodore walked behind me. He suddenly grabbed me, and the flames in his eyes seemed even more intense. Do you hate staying with me so much that you don't even care about your life just to get out? There was a kind of suppressed anger in his tone, which didn't sound friendly to me. So I broke free and replied, not very friendly either. Yes, I'm dying of discomfort staying with you. I'm going to find a sweet and soft omega to relieve myself. This was an angry remark, but it was also the truth. The closer Theodore got, the more obvious my physical reaction became. The hormonal disorder made me start to feel a bit dizzy and weak. I'm not quite clear about what's going on. This is different from the previous situations of pheromone confrontation between two alphas. It's so uncomfortable. I wanted to push him away, but Theodore suddenly came forward aggressively. His broad body pinned me against the door. A strong pheromone of rum rushed into my nose. Theodore's susceptible period broke out. Theodore's reaction is very strange. He pressed his body against mine, and it was extremely hot. The heat even spread to me little by little along the touching skin. His eyes were already bloodshot. He pressed me down firmly. I finally managed to resist and create a little space with all my strength. Theodore gasped and sneered at an arm's length. Which other omega do you have? I've driven all your omegas away. The look in his eyes when he looked at me was full of provocation and pride. I was so provoked that I got angry and sneered back rudely. Really? But William has returned to the country. Sure enough, Theodore froze instantly. I hooked my lips into a smile and said proudly, "It's a pity. You'll never be able to snatch this omega away." More than a decade ago, he told William to stay away from me, but William didn't listen to him. Now, William came back to the country specifically for me and deliberately kept it from him. William is a thorn in Theodore's heart. Once I said this, Theodore would probably hate me even more. I felt a little regretful. His current state was extremely unstable. I'm afraid he'll kill me on impulse. And now my body was getting weaker and weaker. I was no match for him at all. To save my life, I had to be cautious and tried to knock him out by sneaking up on his neck while he was still in a daze. But Theodore reacted extremely quickly, and his big hand swiftly grabbed my wrist. He lifted it up and pinned it above my head. He inserted his left leg between my legs to spread them apart, and then pressed himself against me again. This time, he was even closer, his half-naked chest and abdomen tightly pressed against mine, and the firm, undulating muscle lines and scalding heat were clearly transmitted to my cutaneous nerves. My body involuntarily trembled. There suddenly appeared a crazy smile on Theodore's originally gloomy face. He grabbed my chin and spoke almost against my lips. "Oh, William, what a pity. So what if he's back?" "He's still a step too late." I was a bit dazed. I didn't understand his actions, nor could I understand what he was saying. What did he mean by a step too late? The next second, his hand suddenly moved down and forcefully tore open my clothes. Before I could let out a scream, my lips were suddenly bitten. Theodore's fierce words mixed with moans spilled out. "Right away. I'll make you mine." I was shocked by this completely unexpected kiss. I forgot to struggle. My mind turned into a complete mess. Theodore is kissing me? He's kissing me. Why did he kiss me? He's an alpha. How could he kiss me? Realizing this, I finally came to my senses and bit down hard on his lingering and teasing tongue. Theodore winced in pain but refused to back off. Instead, he probed deeper and more forcefully. I was almost suffocated. It seemed like a long time. It wasn't until he'd had his fill that he finally reluctantly pulled away. My whole body had completely gone limp and was held in his arms. The pheromones that had long been uncontrollably released in large amounts didn't help me resist the alpha's invasion. Instead, like a traitor, they eagerly intertwined and merged with his pheromones. They seeped into my body through the gland on the back of my neck, making me burn with an unbearable craving all over. I used my last bit of clarity to resist the involuntary urge of my body to wrap around Theodore. Gasping for breath, I demanded, What have you done to me?" There was an insatiable madness in Theodore's eyes. "Don't you want to get out?" "I'm helping you get out." He raised his hand and slowly traced it across my chest, gently landing on my abdomen. "Henry, you don't know yet, do you? I second differentiated into an enigma a month ago. So, I'll make you pregnant." After saying that, he picked me up horizontally and quickly walked to the bed. He gently laid me on the bed. Then he immediately and eagerly stripped off his clothes and climbed onto the bed. My vision was already blurred, and I could only vaguely see the outlines and shadows. It was quite spectacular. Enigma, one level higher than Alpha, and can even mark Alpha as his exclusive Omega. From then on, be dominated by his pheromones. Submit, and become dependent until completely unable to leave him. I don't want to. I want to escape, but my glands are invaded by Theodore's pheromones. I'm weak all over, and even a fire is kindled in me. It burns so fiercely that my mind is in chaos. I only feel like there's an insatiable hole in my body. It's itchy and empty. I look at the person sitting on me resentfully and helplessly. I hope he'll let me go, and also hope he'll hug me. My chaotic thoughts make me extremely anxious. But I don't know what's wrong with Theodore. He took off his clothes and then stopped moving. He just looks down at me like this. His eyes are burning and sharp. I almost instantly understand what he means. He's waiting for me to lose control, waiting for me to hug him actively, abandon the dignity of being an alpha and submit to him voluntarily. This scoundrel, I just won't let him have his way. I'm barely holding on to the last faint glimmer of consciousness. I curl up my body, put my hand into my mouth and bite it hard, trying to suppress the increasing itch in my body. Blood trickles down the corner of my mouth. The deeper I bite, suddenly, a hand tightly grips my chin. My jaws loosen. Theodore roughly wipes away the blood with his thumb, brings it to his lips and licks it off. He seems extremely angry, the fire in his eyes almost blazing out. Even his words are filled with a burning heat. Even in this state, you still refuse to bow to me. Finally, he kisses me down in frustration, biting me as if in a fit of rage. A kiss full of the taste of blood, bitter and profound. As the kiss lingers onto my ear, I vaguely hear a murmur. Do you really hate me that much? There seems to be a hint of barely concealed sadness in that voice. No one can resist the control of pheromones. The moment Theodore kisses me, there's no disgust or aversion in me, only a sense of relief that I'm finally saved. What followed was a surging tide of desire. It didn't even take a second for me to actively cling to him. I responded to him more deeply and urgently. It was like a thunderbolt igniting a raging fire, on and off the bed, in corners and by the door. I simply couldn't remember how many times we went at it. In the end, I was so exhausted that my consciousness faded and I passed out. When I woke up again, I felt as if my body had fallen apart. Theodore sat silently by the bed. Hearing the noise, he turned to look at me, looking a bit guilty. I avoided his gaze, my mood extremely complicated. I wanted to curse, but in my mind, there kept flashing those scenes where I actively raised my hand and asked for it. It was a nightmare. Suddenly, I'd slept with my arch enemy, and I'd enjoyed it. How was this going to end? I turned over to face the wall, but accidentally pulled a certain place and couldn't help but let out a hiss. Theodore immediately rushed over in a fluster and asked what was wrong. He looked exactly like a newlywed husband worried about his young wife on the second day of marriage. It made me even angrier. Without saying a word, I directly slapped him. Theodore didn't even get angry. He just stood there stunned for a moment and then obediently sat back. Then, the atmosphere completely turned strange. It made me feel a bit uncomfortable too. I had to shift my focus and started shouting at the ceiling. Hey, what the hell thing? Come out. We've already slept together. Why isn't the door opening? That annoying voice responded right away as if it had been waiting. Sorry, although you two were quite intense. You haven't conceived a life yet. It doesn't meet the condition for opening the door. So it's really that strict. One really has to get pregnant. No. Suddenly I looked at Theodore in disbelief. This bastard tossed me around for so long, and I still didn't get pregnant? Theodore caught my look and immediately defended himself. I'm not impotent. The voice above sweetly reminded, you need a complete marking to get pregnant. As soon as it finished speaking, I realized, I touched the back of my neck. The gland was bitten in a mess. Theodore only gave me a temporary marking. How on earth did he manage to do that? I was stunned, in such a state of passion. I clearly know that I even released my pheromones to entice, but he actually managed to hold back. Theodore looked at me and suddenly let out a self-deprecating laugh. Would you be willing to accept my mark when you hate me so much? He smiled bitterly. After doing this with me, you probably wish you could kill me, right? All of a sudden, he stopped being forceful, as if he had finally given up on something. His back slumped, looking extremely dejected. Suddenly, I remembered the last thing he said in my ear. Theodore seemed to be heartbroken because I hated him. My heart ached. Theodore stood up and was about to ram the door. Instinctively, I grabbed him. I don't know if it was because I was dependent on the enigma pheromone or for some other reason. I hugged him from behind, somewhat awkwardly. I said, it's no use. Let's just mark each other. Theodore's body stiffened, and he looked back at me in disbelief. His intense gaze made me very uncomfortable. I simply raised my hand to block it. In my heart, I silently said, "It doesn't matter. It's just to get out, not for any other reason." Then I took the initiative to kiss him. Another intense sexual encounter. I finally truly witnessed the formidable strength of an enigma. I also finally experienced what it feels like to be completely dominated by pheromones. We seemed to have become two animals, only knowing to reproduce blindly, and I could hardly stay away from Theodore's embrace for even a second. Finally, I passed out completely. When I woke up this time, I was no longer in that strange room. Theodore was also gone. The person sitting by the bed was William. After not seeing each other for 7 years, he was still as gentle as the moonlight. Seeing me wake up, he excitedly pounced on me. "Henry, you're finally awake. You scared me to death." The delicate body of the Omega pressed against me, different from the firm and bony bodies of alphas or enigmas, but I instinctively resisted. I looked at him and forced a smile, not having the time to feel the joy of a long-awaited reunion with an old friend. I was full of anxiety, searching for the rum-scented pheromones that had deeply penetrated my bones in just a few days. There was none. It was nowhere to be found. I reached up and touched the gland on the back of my neck. The bitten wound had already scabbed over and healed. There was hardly any trace left. I felt an inexplicable emptiness in my heart. William noticed something was wrong with me. He tentatively stroked my head and said worriedly, "Henry, your susceptible period hasn't completely ended. Are you feeling very uncomfortable?" Then, he lowered his head shyly and said softly, "The compatibility of our pheromones is as high as 90%. Do you need me to give you some pheromone to soothe you?" As he asked, he tentatively released some pheromones secretly. I smelled a faint fragrance of gardenias at the tip of my nose, but suddenly, there was a spasm in my lower abdomen, and I lay on the edge of the bed retching. William's face immediately turned deathly pale and ugly. It took me a long time to recover before I looked up and apologized to him. William retracted his pheromones completely and forced a smile. He casually changed the topic and asked me what was going on. I was also in a complete mess. William said that I had disappeared the day he came back and had been missing for a whole month. His family and mine almost turned the whole city upside down, but there was no sign of me. It wasn't until a week ago that I suddenly appeared in my own bed. I've been in a coma until today. I saw that William had dark circles under his eyes and guessed that he had probably been watching over me. I felt a bit of gratitude and guilt in my heart, but suddenly William grabbed me and said nervously, "I heard that the people of the Qing family have also been looking for Theodore for more than half a month." He looked at me intently. "Were you together?" Theodore. This name made my heart skip a beat. I didn't know how to answer. Everything in the small room was hazy yet vivid in my memory. I clearly remembered every passionate encounter. I remembered that Theodore finally completely marked me. Right, the mark, the child. I looked down at my abdomen. Could it be that I came out because I'm really pregnant? Just as I was feeling lost, another person entered the room. The capable and reassuring voice of an alpha came. "William, you've been staying up all night for several days. Now that Henry is awake, you can rest assured. Go back and get some rest quickly. Don't exhaust yourself." Sister Sophia nodded at me. William still wanted to decline, but she pushed him away without allowing any refusal. "I'm his older sister. Can't you trust me? Stop making me worry about you too." William had no choice but to leave helplessly. Sophia sat down, looked at me, and suddenly reached out and flicked my forehead. I was stunned. She sighed and lifted the hem of my clothes. "Explain. Who is it?" "What?" I looked down and found that there was actually a flower-shaped mark on my lower abdomen. Sophia's voice was a bit deep. "This is the exclusive mark of an enigma. You can't hide it from me." She looked out sadly. "Fortunately, I found it first and hid it for you before William saw it. Otherwise, he would be heartbroken." "Ah? Why would William be heartbroken?" My mind was in a mess, but Sophia didn't allow me to sort out my thoughts and kept pressing me. "Tell me quickly. I don't care if you eloped with someone or were forced. Anyway, I have to know who that blonde guy is." "Why?" I evaded. Sophia was going crazy. "Why? He got you pregnant." Sophia threw the examination report at me. I saw the tiny gestational sac in the B ultrasound image. There really was a life hidden in my flat lower abdomen. It feels both magical and eerie. I've been an alpha for over 20 years, but now I'm carrying a life for someone else. And this person is Theodore. I looked up at Sophia, unsure of what her reaction would be if she knew. I've complained to her about Theodore's unscrupulousness and abhorrence countless times. She's been plotting to teach this scoundrel a good lesson for me someday. Now that she knows he got me pregnant, I bet she'll fight him to the death. Although Theodore is an enigma now, in front of my sister, who is overly protective of her brother, he'll be no match. Sophia noticed my hesitation and exclaimed in shock, "Henry, don't tell me you're lovesick? You're still protecting him at a time like this. What kind of spell did he cast on you?" "I'm not, and I haven't. I'm not even in a relationship with Theodore." Sophia took a deep breath and said seriously, "You don't have to say if you don't want to, but what are you going to do? I've covered for you with our parents for now, but once your belly gets bigger, everyone will know." I touched my belly and asked with determination, "Can I have this baby aborted?" Sophia was silent for a while and replied, "It's your child, so it's up to you. But this isn't just about the child." "Yes, it's not just about the child. What's more important is the mark. Theoretically, I can't do without Theodore now. In fact, I'm in desperate need of his pheromones now. Whether it's an omega or an alpha, they're equally vulnerable and sensitive during pregnancy. I've been suppressing the instinctive urge deep in my heart to go find Theodore. I wonder how he is now. Does he know we have a child? What will he think? Being controlled by pheromones is really a pain. I never thought I'd be so worried about Theodore one day, nor did I expect that Theodore would come to my door on his own initiative. Moreover, he came with betrothal gifts. When I received the news and went downstairs, I saw at a glance that William had blocked Theodore at the door. That scene inexplicably reminded me of the day when I caught Theodore privately telling William not to talk to me. I felt a strange sense of discomfort and awkwardness in my heart. Theodore finally saw the white moonlight he had been yearning for many years. I guess he must be extremely regretful and remorseful at this moment. I stopped my steps somewhat dejectedly, not sure if I should continue going down. The next second, I heard a loud bang. Theodore punched the wall beside him. He stared at William fiercely, his tone full of warnings. "I've told you to stay away from Henry. He's mine." "Me, Did I have auditory hallucinations?" Henry laughed defiantly. "Theodore, how do you say such a thing? Don't you forget that he chose me back then, and even after I've been abroad for so many years, you still haven't managed to pursue him. What on earth are you going crazy about now?" I was completely stunned. I felt like I couldn't quite digest their conversation. Theodore's words to Henry back then, telling him to ignore me, weren't a confession out of jealousy. Instead, he was declaring his sovereignty over Henry. So all these years, him driving away the omegas around me wasn't out of targeting. Instead, it was because I'm actually his one true love. And what does William mean by saying I chose him? We're clearly just friends. I'm going crazy. Before I could even digest all this, I heard William continue, "Theodore, alphas and omegas are a natural match. You, a homosexual who goes against the natural order. Why are you causing trouble for him?" After saying this, Theodore's straight back seemed to slump all of a sudden. It was like a physical reaction from having experienced this countless times. But the next second, he straightened up and said to William arrogantly, "I'm really sorry to disappoint you. The natural order actually supports him being with me. Let me put it bluntly. We've already." As he was speaking, he looked up and saw me, then suddenly stopped. He probably wasn't sure if I was willing to make the truth public. So he shut up. Only for a moment did his eyes turn tender. William saw his gaze and also turned his head. Seeing me, he briskly stepped forward, took my arm, and said proudly to Theodore, "Oh, I forgot to tell you some good news. Henry and I are going to get engaged next month. It was personally arranged by Grandpa Sue." Theodore and I looked at each other and stood there, stunned. Who could have thought that I would end up in such an awkward situation one day? The Omega who grew up with me since childhood said he was going to get engaged to me, while I'm carrying the child of another enigma in my belly. I was really at a loss and cast a pleading look at my older sister. Unexpectedly, Sophia nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, the marriage between Chinue and Henry was arranged by Grandpa last month." But she glanced at my belly and changed the subject. It was just something the old man said casually. "The betrothal gifts haven't been sent yet. Everything is up to fate. Thank goodness." Theodore let out a slight sigh of relief, but his face remained solemn. His eyes were fixed on the hand that William had around my arm. I subtly pulled away and smiled at William. "William, go and rest first. I'll talk to you later about anything." Perhaps omegas are naturally sensitive. He seemed to sense something strange between Theodore and me. Somewhat reluctantly, he said, "Are you going to talk to him first?" I nodded solemnly. Finally, he turned away dejectedly. The moment Sophia heard that Theodore had come with betrothal gifts, she immediately realized who the blonde guy was. As soon as William left, she immediately punched Theodore hard in the face. Theodore didn't dodge or evade, and blood immediately flowed from the corner of his mouth. Sophia still wasn't satisfied and punched again. I had to stop her. It's not that I'm a love-struck fool. It's mainly that this matter can't all be blamed on him. It was obvious that there was an unknown substance that induced the susceptible period in that room at that time. Both Theodore and I were controlled by the pheromones. Otherwise, Theodore wouldn't have said those nonsense about loving me and wanting me later. Of course, before hearing what he said just now, I always thought it was nonsense. And now, I'm not sure if it was nonsense or finally a confession of true feelings. I sent Sophia away and took Theodore to the study alone. The moment the door closed, I couldn't hold back anymore and eagerly absorbed that long-awaited pheromone. Theodore also noticed and released his pheromones without reservation. The uneasiness and anxiety that had been weighing on me since I woke up was finally alleviated a little, but it was still not enough. Theodore instinctively wanted to reach out and hug me, but he lifted his hand halfway and then retracted it. I secretly resented him in my heart. He had done everything he should and shouldn't have done. Now, what was he pretending to be a gentleman for? A smart person doesn't make things difficult for themselves. I directly gave an order. Come here and bite me. Theodore was stunned for a moment, and then rushed forward as if he was afraid I would go back on my word. He hugged me tightly and kissed my gland soothingly with his lips. Then he bit down hard. A sufficient amount of pheromones poured into my body, and I came back to life again. After hugging and soothing me for a long time, I struggled to break free, but Theodore refused to let go. He hugged me even tighter, buried his head beside my neck, and said hoarsely, "Henry, I want to marry you." I didn't expect Theodore to be so direct. I didn't know how to react for a moment. Theodore lifted his head and touched my abdomen with his hand. "I know there's my child in there. I'll take responsibility for you." I don't know why, but I felt as if I had been splashed with a basin of cold water. I sneered and mocked, "You're really full of a sense of responsibility." I pushed him away and said coldly, "But there's no need to waste your sense of responsibility like this. Modern medicine is developed enough. It's just a child." I paused for a moment and continued with difficulty. "It's easy to get rid of it. As for the mark, it can also be washed off." I suppressed the sourness welling up in my heart. "You can just act like nothing ever happened." After I finished speaking, I turned to look at him. I thought I would see him breathe a sigh of relief, but unexpectedly, I saw his eyes turn red. He stared straight at me, and there seemed to be tears welling up in his eyes. He looked extremely sad, but suddenly he laughed and said, "Henry, I never knew that you loved William so much. For his sake, you can even give up the life you've conceived." I'm blind. I was so self-centered. I even deluded myself into thinking that you might have feelings for me. I deluded myself into thinking that I could take this opportunity to make you dependent on me, and then you'd be mine. Sorry, did I disgust you? He laughed while shedding tears, then turned his head and didn't look at me anymore. "I won't pester you anymore." After saying that, he turned around and left. The door slammed shut, and it felt like a loud noise in my mind too. My heart ached with a dull pain. Oh no, it seems I really hurt him this time. I stood there in a daze, stiff. That crazy sense of unease and anxiety started to well up in my body again. But something's not right. I've just received enough pheromones. I shouldn't have a hormonal imbalance again in such a short time. Then why is that? Is it because Theodore cried? I covered my aching chest, feeling a bit at a loss. I seemed to have misunderstood Theodore. I thought he wanted to marry me only because he had to take responsibility for the child. I don't want such a forced marriage, but he cried. He thought I didn't want our child because of William. How could that be? I touched my belly. This is a life that I've personally nurtured and is connected to me by blood. I'm just afraid that he won't be welcomed. I let out a breath to calm my breathing. Then I lifted my feet and chased after him. Theodore was walking very fast. When I chased him into the yard, I only saw him saying to William beside the courtyard gate, "Congratulations to you." Then he got into the car without looking back and sped away. William was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes lit up. He turned around and ran towards me, but I only felt a lump in my throat, and my body seemed to lose gravity. I fainted. The doctor said that excessive emotional excitement led to abnormal hormonal disorders. Fortunately, the fetus is okay. Of course, these words were not told to others. William always thought that I was injured when I was missing and always tried to comfort and help me with his pheromones. I endured the sense of repulsion and patiently persuaded him not to worry. I never realized that William had such feelings for me, just as I didn't realize that Theodore always liked me. I even regarded the rivalry between the two of them because of me when we were young as a tragic love story of unrequited love. Well, I admit that I'm the stupid one who doesn't understand. I sighed melancholy and decided to clarify things. I was unaware of the engagement that Grandpa mentioned. William smiled and said, "I know. It was when your previous fiancé ran away that Grandpa told me privately. He said not to tell you first and give you a surprise later. A surprise? I was puzzled. William gave a sly smile. They thought that we were in a relationship before and only separated because I went abroad. So when they knew I was coming back, they wanted to give you a surprise. Ah? Didn't you explain? William lowered his eyes and concentrated, saying, why should I explain? After all, I also hope that we are in a relationship. He looked at me straightforwardly, with a bit of helplessness in his eyes. I've been waiting for you to come to your senses. I thought there'd be no chance after you went abroad, but unexpectedly, we're still fated to meet when you're back. Of course, I don't want to let go. As he spoke, he reached out and held my hand. I lowered my eyes and slowly withdrew my hand. But, I don't like you, Xingwei. I'm sorry. William's fingers paused for a moment before retracting. After a long while, he said, you like Theodore. It wasn't a question. Instead, I didn't know how to answer. He suddenly recalled, when we were kids, you always stuck to him. Although the three of us played together, you only held his hand and always thought about leaving the delicious and fun things for him. Even after you had a falling out, you'd mention him 3 times a day in front of me, talking about what he'd done. Look, your eyes have never left him. William smiled self-deprecatingly. I should have noticed earlier, but I just didn't want to face it. After all, you're both alphas. His words were like a stone thrown into my heart lake, caused ripples that I hadn't even realized. It turned out that my concern for Theodore wasn't just because of the pheromones. I'm really a fool. William suddenly reached out and stroked my head, still gentle. All right, I won't interfere in your business. You, don't go against your own feelings. William worried for nothing. I never go against my own feelings. When I really wanted to beat Theodore before, I did it. Now that I want to be with him, I'll tie him up and bring him back if I have to. I headed straight for the Qing family compound with several trucks full of sacks. One sack was reserved for tying him up. The other sacks were all filled with betrothal gifts. Theodore was avoiding me and refused to see me. He's really as good as his word as always. He said he wouldn't pester me, and he really didn't. When the butler couldn't bring him here, I took out a megaphone and made an announcement across the city. Do you still want a wife? There's also a child included. You have 3 seconds. If you're late, you'll lose both. As soon as the announcement ended, Theodore jumped directly from the 3rd floor. Goodness, this reckless move. Fortunately, he's evolved into an enigma. He didn't even slow down and rushed straight up to me. His face was full of shock and blankness, but his hands were trembling slightly. Okay, I admit it, it was a bit too high profile. Suddenly, I felt a bit embarrassed. I looked at him, touched my nose and said, as stated above, please give a reply. Theodore opened his mouth but made no sound. He clenched his fists and paused for a while before smiling with pursed lips. Should I answer yes? Sir? Sir. Then he hugged me tightly. So tight that it seemed to squeeze into my bones and blood. There was a warm and moist feeling on my neck. Theodore's voice was full of surprise and reverence. Yes, I want them. Wife and children. I want them all. My high-profile proposal shocked countless people, especially my family. There was no way. I had complained about Theodore in front of them too many times before, and the impression of us being sworn enemies was deeply rooted. For this reason, Theodore had to humble himself and make a great effort to please them before he finally managed to gain a little favor. The only person he couldn't handle was Grandpa. He was extremely angry. I worked so hard to prepare 2 engagement banquets for you. One time the other person ran away, and the other time you ran away. Well, are you still going to let me attend a banquet or not? I quickly tried to soothe him, saying, yes, we'll hold the wedding as usual next month. How about that? Grandpa was a bit old-fashioned. What's the point of holding it? 2 alphas. You guys don't care about your reputation. But I do. My heart ached. I quickly clarified. No, Theodore has had a second stage differentiation. Now he's an enigma. Moreover, you're going to be a grandpa soon. Grandpa's eyes instantly lit up. He was a bit awkward but finally stroked my belly contentedly. He waved his big hand and laughed. Hold it. Hold it on a grand scale. After comforting the old man, I pulled Theodore back. Suddenly, I turned around and looked at him. If you hadn't had a secondary differentiation, would we not be together? Theodore paused and tightened his grip on my hand. No, there's only one reason we wouldn't be together, and that's if you didn't want to be with me. He hugged me tightly, cherishingly. When I was a kid, I avoided you because you were an alpha, but I fell in love with you, so I was scared and at a loss. But later I just couldn't help it. I couldn't stand seeing other omegas around you, even if it meant having a stigmatized AA relationship. I still wanted to be with you. Who would have thought that I'd have a secondary differentiation into an enigma and happen to enter that room? What else could this be but a predestined fate? He looked at me, his eyes curving into a smile. Even God is pushing us to fall in love. So we're destined to be together. Oh, that door. We later searched countless places, but there were no leads. In the end, we could only conclude that perhaps this was some kind of game dropped from the other world to bring lovers together. In a sense, it could also be called fate. So we stopped dwelling on it. Theodore and I had a perfect wedding. We followed the custom of throwing the bouquet to pass on good luck. I deliberately aimed at William when I threw it, but it was caught by an alpha I'd never seen before. The alpha walked over with a beaming smile, holding the bouquet, and congratulated us. Then he turned to me, squinting his eyes slightly. So you're the one who's been William's first love. I had a hunch that something was off, and the alpha continued. Thank you for finally putting an end to his unnecessary attachment. From now on, he's completely mine. At this time, William pushed his way through the crowd and frowned at the alpha. Daniel, you chased me all the way from abroad to here. Haven't you had enough of this? This is someone else's wedding. Daniel gave a charming smile and skillfully put his arm around William's waist. Okay, baby, here's the bouquet for you. Let's not disturb the newlyweds. William pushed him away, then turned to me and said somewhat sheepishly, Henry, what I said before was all from the bottom of my heart. It's just that. I smelled the faint fragrance of gardenias on Daniel and said understandingly, I get it. It's a doomed love affair. Theodore hugged me tightly from behind, raised an eyebrow at William, half proudly and half advisingly. Recognize your feelings and look forward. That night, I heard that the two of them disappeared together. They couldn't be found anywhere in the whole city. It was a similar situation. Theodore and I exchanged a smile. Perhaps in some room, a new story was about to unfold.